You can't just bill us and expect payment, the HOA manager said, her voice slicing through the crisp morning air like a whistle. I stood at the edge of my dock, the scent of freshly cut cedar from the deck beneath my feet mixing with the sharp tang of the lake water, watching as sunlight fractured across the ripples. My name is Jack Thompson, and I had spent the last 6 weeks coordinating repairs that totaled $28,500, every nail and plank accounted for, every invoice ready for submission. The wind carried the faint hum of a distant motorboat, blending with the screech of gulls overhead, an ordinary soundtrack for an extraordinary frustration. The HOA, a group of self-appointed overseers in their pastel shirts and khaki shorts, smiled with a confidence born of routine dismissal, assuming my presence here was simply another day of bureaucracy for them to breeze through. I felt the first prickles of anger, not the kind that erupts, but the simmering, calculating sort that compels a person to observe, to remember, to plan. I crouched to inspect the repairs one more time, the freshly sealed deck boards glinting under the sun, the precise alignment of the new railings, the clean, even seams in the concrete walkway. Everything was meticulously done, and yet here they were, flipping through my invoices as if they were meaningless scribbles. My hands brushed the rough grain of cedar, and I could feel every groove, every ridge, a tactile reminder of my effort, my investment. I noticed a small detail I had recorded in the repair log, a slight warp in a corner board that required a custom cut, and how quickly the manager skimmed past it, unconcerned. That moment crystallized everything. This wasn't about repairs, it wasn't about rules. It was about asserting control. I straightened, letting the warmth of the sun slide over my shoulders, and made a decision. I would not confront them with anger. I would confront them with precision, with evidence, with inevitability. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a reminder of the legal consultant I had scheduled to review HOA codes the day before. The lake reflected the light in fractured golds and blues. Each wave a tiny flicker of anticipation, almost as if the water itself knew the next move. As the manager's eyes met mine, I allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile, the kind that didn't mock but promised resolution. Every paper I had collected, every photograph of the repaired deck, every recorded call was a seed planted for what was to come. I could hear the faint click of the lock on the community gate behind me, a sound that would become pivotal, a reminder of access and restriction. The air smelled faintly of pine from the surrounding trees, mingling with the lake's earthy undertone, creating an intoxicating backdrop for calculated patience. I inhaled slowly, tasting the crisp air, the energy of anticipation, the quiet thrill of knowing the rules could be bent in favor of fairness. I could almost hear my own heartbeat syncing with the lapping water, each pulse a metronome counting down to the moment when control would shift. I stepped back from the dock, boots pressing lightly against the gravel path, feeling the texture of every stone underfoot, grounding myself. I glanced at the HOA manager once more, her expression still smug, oblivious to the web of preparation I had already woven. "We'll see about that," I muttered under my breath, a whisper lost to the breeze but not to the inevitability of what was about to unfold. The smell of damp wood and fresh paint mingled in the air, a sensory cue of all the effort invested, all the patience earned, all the strategy silently building toward its payoff. The sun climbed higher, glinting off the lake's surface, and I knew that by the next day, the balance of power here would tilt, imperceptibly but irrevocably, in favor of justice. The day moved slowly, each hour stretching like the gentle ripple across the lake. I walked along the gravel path, every step a soft crunch beneath my boots, and checked the papers in my folder one more time. Each invoice, each photograph of the repaired sections of the deck, and each recorded conversation was meticulously organized, a silent testament to the work I had put into this property. The sun warmed my shoulders, but a cool breeze carried the scent of pine needles and damp earth, reminding me that this was not just about repairs, it was about principles, about fairness, and about standing firm against routine dismissal. I observed the HOA members from a distance as they gathered near the community building, their laughter ringing slightly too loud, their posture exuding self-assurance as if the rules automatically bent in their favor. My mind raced not with anger but with careful calculations, noting every detail, anticipating their reactions, and planning several moves ahead. The hum of a lawnmower nearby punctuated the air, blending with the distant call of birds, creating a rhythm that matched my pulse as I envisioned the steps I would take to regain control. I returned to the dock, running my fingers along the smooth wood of the railing, appreciating the effort that went into the repairs, the alignment, and the polish, every detail a proof of dedication. I glanced at the lock on the gate, noting the way sunlight reflected off its metal surface, a small but critical component in the plan that had taken shape in my mind over the past week. My phone vibrated in my pocket, a reminder of the scheduled call with the HOA legal consultant, reinforcing my growing confidence that I was well within my rights. I leaned back against the deck, breathing in the mixture of fresh water, sun-warmed wood, and pine, letting the sensory details anchor me in this moment of anticipation. I watched as a sailboat drifted lazily across the lake, its movement calm yet determined, mirroring the approach I had chosen, steady, deliberate, and calculated. Thoughts of potential obstacles crossed my mind, the manager insisting on additional documentation, a neighbor who might intervene, but each challenge had a solution already outlined in my notes. I moved to the edge of the dock, crouching slightly to inspect the reflection of the clouds in the water, the light shimmering off small ripples as if the lake itself acknowledged the careful orchestration of the plan. The HOA members were still laughing and chatting, unaware of the attention focused on every one of their movements. I felt the satisfaction of preparation, the quiet excitement that came from knowing that patience, evidence, and strategy could outweigh casual arrogance. Each breath I took carried a mixture of anticipation and calm resolve, a steadying rhythm as I prepared for the moment when control would shift. I walked back toward the house, every footstep deliberate, noting the texture of the pathway and the subtle changes in shadow across the lawn, internalizing the environment as though it were part of the strategy itself. The day pressed on, light shifting gently over the lake, and I knew that with careful timing and adherence to the plan, the outcome would be unmistakably clear. Every sense was attuned, every detail catalogued, and I felt the quiet satisfaction of someone who had anticipated the scenario fully and was prepared to act with precision when the moment arrived. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lawn as I stepped back to survey the property once more, my eyes tracing every edge of the freshly repaired deck and walkway. The sound of water lapping gently against the pilings beneath the dock filled the space around me, a rhythmic accompaniment to the quiet intensity of planning and anticipation. I opened my folder and reviewed the notes one more time, each line meticulously documenting invoices, photographs, and correspondence with the contractors, the organized chaos of proof and preparation giving me a sense of control that was both calming and energizing. From a distance, I watched the HOA members pacing near their office, their conversations light and casual, unaware of the scrutiny they were under. I noted the subtle patterns of their movement, the way they lingered over certain documents and glanced at the gates, the cadence of their day providing me with a map of opportunity and timing. I moved slowly along the pathway, feeling the texture of the gravel beneath my boots, the occasional crunch underfoot aligning with my own measured breathing. The smell of pine mingled with the faint trace of fresh-cut grass, grounding me in the physical space even as my mind plotted several steps ahead. I stopped at the gate, running my fingers along the cool metal, imagining the mechanisms and how they might respond to careful intervention. Every click and turn accounted for in the mental rehearsal I had constructed. The breeze carried the distant scent of water lilies from the lake, subtle and sweet, a reminder of the serenity that the space could hold when order was maintained and fairness respected. I considered the logistics, access points, timing, visibility, and the need to maintain calm composure, ensuring that every action would be precise and deliberate. A pair of swans glided across the lake, their reflection broken only slightly by the small ripples from a passing fish, the image reinforcing the importance of patience and observation in achieving a desired outcome. I returned to the deck, running my hand along the rail and feeling the smooth finish of the wood, a tactile affirmation of the effort invested and the meticulous care taken. The shadows lengthened as the sun began its descent, and I felt a heightened awareness of the interplay between light, space, and timing, each factor crucial in orchestrating the plan I had envisioned. The HOA members had begun to gather around the entrance, laughing and chatting, their confidence unchanged, giving me the opportunity to step back and measure the sequence of events that would unfold. I closed my eyes briefly, taking in the mixture of scents, sounds, and textures, allowing the sensory details to anchor me and reinforce the clarity of the steps ahead. I could feel the anticipation building not as anxiety but as a steady, controlled energy, a signal that the preparation and foresight were ready to be executed at the perfect moment. Every paper in my folder, every photograph, every recorded conversation felt like a tile in a mosaic, pieces aligning toward an inevitable conclusion. The wind shifted slightly, brushing my face with a gentle chill that reminded me of the stakes and the precision required, and I knew that the careful orchestration of patience, observation, and evidence would soon converge to create a moment of undeniable clarity and justice. The late afternoon sun began to sink lower behind the line of trees that bordered the lake, casting elongated shadows across the grass and glinting off the surface of the water. I moved quietly along the deck, each step calculated, the texture of the wood beneath my fingers reminding me of the care and precision of every repair I had overseen. The gentle breeze carried the faint smell of pine and fresh water, mingling with the earthy scent of the lawn, creating an atmosphere that was at once calm and charged with anticipation. I opened my folder once more, reviewing the neatly organized documents and photographs, each piece a tangible proof of the work completed and the effort invested. The HOA members were still in the distance, their casual laughter and conversation floating across the property, unaware of the scrutiny and preparation that had been quietly accumulating. I watched as one of them adjusted the stack of papers in their hand, the sunlight catching the edges, and I noted the small details that could influence the timing of my next move. My eyes traced the lines of the repaired deck, following the seams and edges that had been aligned with careful precision, every measurement accounted for, every corner inspected, the craftsmanship evident in every plank and railing. I could hear the faint hum of a motorboat from across the lake, the rhythmic pattern matching the steady pulse of anticipation in my chest. Moving to the edge of the dock, I crouched slightly to inspect the reflection of the sky and trees in the water, noting how each ripple distorted and refracted the light, a visual reminder of how small shifts could change perspective and influence outcomes. I glanced toward the community gate, the metal lock glinting in the sun, a focal point in the sequence of steps I had meticulously planned, every detail from timing to visibility accounted for in my mental map. The air was filled with the subtle interplay of scents and sounds, the breeze rustling through pine needles, the soft splash of a fish breaking the surface, the distant call of a bird echoing across the lake, each element reinforcing the stillness and focus required to maintain control. I walked back along the deck, my boots making a faint crunch against the gravel at the perimeter, noting the way shadows shifted across the lawn and buildings as the light continued its descent. I paused at a corner of the repaired walkway, running my hand along the smooth concrete and polished wood, acknowledging the tangible proof of effort and the meticulous attention to detail that had gone into every task. Observing the HOA members, I saw their confidence and routine interactions, each movement unguarded, each glance fleeting, reinforcing the advantage of preparation and patience. I breathed in deeply, letting the mixture of pine, water, and sun-warmed wood fill my senses, grounding me in the present moment, while my mind mapped the final steps toward resolution. Every element, every sound, every visual cue had been catalogued and mentally rehearsed, forming a coherent plan that was ready to be executed with precision. The sun cast long golden streaks across the lake, illuminating the repaired structures and surrounding landscape, and I felt a quiet certainty settle in me, the calm assurance that the careful orchestration of observation, timing, and evidence would soon converge to deliver clarity and justice without haste, without force, but with inevitable resolution. As the golden light of early evening settled across the lake, I felt a quiet clarity in every movement and decision I had made that day. I walked slowly along the edge of the property, the gravel crunching softly under my boots, each step deliberate, grounding me in the reality of what had been prepared and what was about to unfold. The repaired deck gleamed subtly in the fading sun, its smooth surfaces catching the light in a way that seemed to accentuate the care and effort poured into every plank and railing. I paused to take in the full view of the lake, the gentle ripples reflecting the colors of the sky, soft oranges and blues blending with the shimmering surface, a visual reminder of balance and order waiting to be restored. The HOA members were still moving about near the community building, their voices carrying faintly across the water, punctuated by the occasional distant splash of a fish breaking the surface or the call of a bird gliding above. I crouched near the corner of the deck, my fingers brushing the wood, feeling the tactile evidence of every repair, every measured cut, and every aligned seam, each sensation reinforcing the meticulous planning that had led to this moment. The breeze carried the subtle scent of damp earth and pine, filling my senses and heightening awareness, every inhalation a steadying rhythm as I rehearsed the sequence of steps I had prepared. My eyes scanned the lock at the community gate, catching the glint of sunlight on the metal, visualizing the careful handling and precise timing that would allow the plan to proceed without misstep. I returned to the pathway, boots pressing lightly on the gravel, noting the play of shadows as the sun dipped lower, each shift in light offering insight into timing, positioning, and observation. The water lapped gently against the pilings beneath the dock, a soothing, rhythmic counterpoint to the focused energy building within me, each wave a quiet reminder of the patience and precision required to act effectively. I paused at the edge of the walkway, touching the smooth concrete, appreciating the proof of effort, the tangible success of careful planning, the small yet significant details that would carry the weight of evidence when needed. The HOA members continued their routines, their movements predictable yet unguarded, unaware that every glance and gesture had been recorded, every interaction noted, creating a comprehensive understanding of timing, access, and opportunity. I breathed deeply, the mixture of lake water, pine, and sun-warmed wood filling my senses and anchoring me in the present, each detail a part of the broader orchestration of preparation. The sun lowered further, painting long, gold-hued streaks across the water and illuminating the repaired areas, emphasizing clarity, precision, and readiness. Every component of the environment, every sound, every scent, every movement observed, contributed to the strategy, a carefully layered approach that combined patience, observation, and evidence to ensure that the resolution would arrive naturally and with undeniable fairness. As the light softened, I allowed a brief pause to absorb the moment, the quiet before the final steps, knowing that the careful orchestration of my efforts had set the stage for a clear and just outcome that required no haste, no confrontation, only the inevitability of preparation and rightful action. The evening deepened as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft amber glow across the lake, turning the water into a mirror of the sky above. I lingered on the deck, running my fingers over the smooth wood of the railing, feeling the subtle grooves and finishes that testified to the effort invested over weeks. The air was crisp now, carrying the mingled scent of pine, damp earth, and the faint trace of lake water, each inhalation grounding me in the moment, while heightening awareness of every detail around me. In the distance, the HOA members moved between the community building and their vehicles, their casual gestures betraying no sense of the attention focused upon them. I crouched slightly at the edge of the dock, noting the way shadows stretched across the grass, the subtle variations in light, each angle reinforcing the timing I had calculated and the sequence of actions I had mentally rehearsed. My folder lay open nearby, documents neatly stacked, photographs and invoices aligned with careful precision, proof of the labor, money, and dedication that had gone into every repair. The soft hum of insects began to emerge as night approached, accompanied by the occasional ripple from a fish breaking the water, the rhythm of nature matching the deliberate pace of observation I maintained. I moved to the gate, running my hand over the metal lock, imagining the mechanisms and envisioning the careful handling required to execute the plan flawlessly. Every breeze, every creak of a board, every distant laugh carried subtle information, reinforcing the mental map I had constructed and the advantage of patience. I walked slowly along the perimeter, boots crunching over gravel, noting the way the last streaks of sunlight highlighted textures on the deck, the walkway, and the surrounding foliage, each element an anchor in the orchestration of readiness. The HOA members were still unaware, their focus on routine interactions providing the opportunity to proceed without interference. I allowed my gaze to drift across the lake, watching the reflections of the trees and clouds shimmer and shift, reminding me of the importance of timing, perspective, and attention to detail. I crouched once more, touching the polished wood of the deck, feeling the smoothness beneath my fingers, a tactile affirmation of careful preparation, every seam and alignment documented and validated. The shadows lengthened, blending with the twilight, and I felt a sense of quiet energy building, a controlled anticipation that steadied my breathing and sharpened my focus. Every sound, every scent, every visual cue was part of a larger orchestration, a sequence designed to maintain control and ensure that the culmination of patience, evidence, and preparation would unfold seamlessly. The lake, calm and reflective, mirrored the stillness and precision of the moment, a silent partner in the quiet strategy, reinforcing the certainty that every careful step taken until now had led directly to the next, inevitable phase of resolution. Twilight deepened over the lake as I moved toward the gate, each step deliberate, every muscle aware of the tactile feedback beneath my boots. The repaired deck glowed faintly in the last remnants of sunlight, the wood catching a soft amber hue that mirrored the calm determination I felt inside. I crouched by the lock, fingers tracing its contours, imagining how the mechanism would respond, visualizing the precise sequence of movements that had been rehearsed in my mind for days. The gentle lap of water against the pilings provided a rhythmic backdrop, a steady counterpoint to the quiet anticipation coursing through me. In the distance, the HOA members continued their routine, oblivious to the careful observation that had tracked their patterns, the pauses, and the moments of inattentiveness that had been mapped in detail. I ran my hand along the smooth railing of the dock, feeling the polished finish, the seams, and the alignment of every plank, tactile reminders of the effort invested and the meticulous preparation that had led to this exact moment. The air was rich with the scents of pine, damp earth, and the faint tang of lake water, grounding me while sharpening awareness of every sound and movement. Around the property, I shifted slightly, noting the interplay of shadow and light across the lawn, the way the last beams of sunlight reflected off the metal of the lock, highlighting the precise point of interaction that would determine the success of the carefully constructed plan. The faint hum of insects and the occasional ripple from a passing fish punctuated the evening air, each natural rhythm aligning with the controlled pace of observation and readiness. I allowed myself a moment to absorb the setting, the glowing reflections in the water, the gentle sway of trees, and the distant chatter of the HOA, reinforcing the contrast between their routine and the deliberate orchestration that had been quietly set in motion. Every document in my folder, every photograph, every recorded detail of the repairs and communications had been meticulously reviewed, forming an unshakable foundation for the actions that would soon unfold. I breathed deeply, letting the mixture of pine, water, and fading sunlight fill my senses, anchoring me in the present while maintaining focus on timing, precision, and clarity. The shadows lengthened further, blending into the approaching night, emphasizing the importance of calm observation, steady resolve, and careful execution. I stood, straightening my posture, eyes scanning the environment, confident that the patient accumulation of preparation, evidence, and careful attention to every detail would converge to shift the balance, ensuring that fairness and order would be restored naturally and with absolute certainty, without haste, without confrontation, only through the inevitable effect of deliberate, precise, and thoughtful action. The first stars began to appear in the deepening twilight as I stood at the edge of the dock, the water reflecting the dimming sky in soft, flickering patterns. Every detail I had observed throughout the day, the alignment of the repaired deck, the precise installation of the railings, the careful documentation in my folder, felt alive in the quiet of the evening, each element poised to interact with the next. I adjusted my stance slightly, feeling the solid ground beneath my boots and the subtle shift of gravel underfoot, anchoring me to the present moment as anticipation built steadily within me. The HOA members had moved closer to their vehicles, still unaware of the meticulous observation and preparation that had been accumulating silently, their casual gestures and conversation continuing, unguarded and routine. I ran my hand along the smooth edge of the railing once more, appreciating the tactile evidence of every effort and the subtle textures that confirmed the precision of every repair. The scent of pine mingled with the cool lake breeze, carrying faint traces of damp earth and sun-warmed wood, each inhalation reinforcing focus and awareness. I glanced at the lock on the community gate, noting the glint of the metal in the fading light, envisioning the exact sequence of movements that would be required to ensure proper timing and flawless execution. Every sound around me, the gentle lapping of water against the pilings, the distant call of birds returning to roost, the soft rustle of leaves in the wind, was a cue, a rhythm to which my observation and patience aligned perfectly. I crouched slightly at the corner of the deck, feeling the smooth finish beneath my fingers, every plank, every seam, every measurement accounted for and mentally rehearsed, a silent affirmation that the groundwork was complete and ready for the final moments of action. Shadows stretched longer across the lawn, merging with the approach of night, highlighting the interplay between light, space, and timing, all critical elements in the orchestration of what was about to unfold. I took a slow, deliberate breath, letting the mixture of scents and sounds anchor me as my mind ran through the steps in precise order, each phase linked seamlessly to the next. The lake reflected the first twinkle of stars, the water calm, steady, and mirroring the clarity of focus I felt as I surveyed the property one last time, absorbing the scene fully, registering every angle, every subtle movement. I straightened fully, feeling a controlled energy building, a sense of quiet anticipation that was steady, deliberate, and ready to be transformed into action at the exact moment. The HOA members remained oblivious, moving through their routine, giving every opportunity for the carefully prepared sequence to unfold naturally. I allowed myself a brief pause, absorbing the gentle sounds, the subtle shifts in light, and the intricate textures of the environment, knowing that every observation, every detail, and every preparation had led to this pivotal point, a moment where careful planning, patience, and precision would converge to ensure a seamless, undeniable resolution that upheld fairness and clarity. The night had fully settled over the lake, a deep indigo stretching across the sky and mirrored in the still water, speckled with the reflection of distant stars. I stood on the dock, taking in the entire property in one slow sweep, observing the repaired deck, the walkway, and the neatly aligned railings, every detail a silent testament to the work and preparation that had brought me to this point. The cool night air carried the earthy scent of pine and damp soil, mingling with the faint aroma of the lake, grounding me in the present and sharpening my awareness of every subtle sound and movement. From the corner of my eye, I noted the HOA members approaching the gate, their casual pace revealing no sense of the observation that had tracked every gesture and step they had taken throughout the day. I ran my fingers over the lock once more, visualizing the precise handling and timing that would ensure the plan unfolded exactly as envisioned, every component accounted for and rehearsed in detail. The gentle ripple of water against the pilings and the soft call of a distant owl created a rhythm that matched the steady pulse of anticipation within me, each beat reinforcing focus, patience, and readiness. I crouched near the edge of the deck, my fingers grazing the polished wood, feeling the textures, the seams, the evidence of careful repair, and allowing myself a moment to appreciate the culmination of effort, strategy, and observation. The shadows cast by the trees and buildings stretched long and merged with the darkness, highlighting the balance between light and timing, each nuance a guide for precise execution. The HOA members reached the gate and paused, their faces registering slight confusion as the sequence of events I had orchestrated began to unfold, the evidence, preparation, and calculated patience becoming immediately apparent. I straightened, inhaling the crisp air deeply, tasting the mixture of pine, lake, and evening coolness, a sensory anchor that reinforced calm and control as I observed the reactions around me. Every document, every photograph, every recorded interaction now played its role, forming a complete narrative of effort, diligence, and rightful preparation, leaving no room for ambiguity or dispute. The gentle movement of water mirrored the steady rhythm of the unfolding resolution, a quiet accompaniment to the shift in balance that had been silently prepared for days. I felt a calm satisfaction, the kind that comes from knowing preparation, observation, and strategic patience had created an inevitable outcome, fairness restored through deliberate, thoughtful, and precise action. The HOA members, now fully aware of the scope of my preparation, moved with recognition and acceptance, and the property, repaired, organized, and documented, stood as a clear testament to what careful planning, attention to detail, and quiet determination could achieve. The lake reflected the moonlight in soft ripples, and I allowed myself a final breath, the culmination of observation, patience, and strategic action settling over the property like a quiet affirmation, every element aligned, every detail accounted for, and justice achieved with clarity, precision, and inevitability.